Welcome to the channel. This is an updated Atlas guide video, and the build will be at the end of the video. I just wanted to walk over some of my PvP gameplay to give you all some insight into what I'm thinking as I'm fighting. So initially you always want to mount up and get dismounted when in combat, as that allows you to heal up when you have the right talisman for that, or the right mount charm. Initially, I'm fighting these two heavy tank builds, and the main thing that you want to understand is their environment. So you don't want to be fighting in the middle of the road, and you don't want to fight in a location where you don't have any line of sight, or where enemy players can increase their numbers drastically in a short amount of time. So I'm by their spawn, which is a good spot to get players initially to fight, but the end goal will be to take them to a spot that has good terrain where I can manipulate the enemy players into moving in a certain way. So I'm fighting these two individuals. One ran and got replaced with a more squishy opponent, so just dishing in attacks with my Warhammer. Got two heavy attacks that have shockwave, he's low health. And what I'm doing is staying on my sword and shield bar because the light attacks do have very good tracking, and each light attack prevents him from strafing off further in without dodging. So when he's out of stam, it's going to be a tricky scenario for him to escape. And right now, I just put in the work and slowly kill him. So if a ranged player is attacking you and he's not actively running, then you can kill them. Off of clear out, you do get a heavy attack now in this patch. I just figured that out as I was fighting in this match, and I was able to kill those two individuals. So now, after two are dead, more are coming in from the spawn. I was getting shot at. And the other thing you have to realize is players aren't going to fight and aren't going to try and kill you if they don't believe that they can kill you. So health manipulation is a very important tool at your disposal. At 23,000 health, they begin to see my health bar at 19k. So until they get me to 19k, they don't even see that they've done damage to me. And that's important. So right now, I see a lot of ranged players, and there's about 5 of them over there, and my goal is to get all 5 of them across the wall. But that's not going to happen until I show them that there's a chance that they can kill me. So I let my health show. It's at 18k, it dropped to 16, and that was enough to lure people over to this back wall, which is the spot that we want to take the 1vx in. So it looks like it's a 1v4, and right now it's recovery time. So I let my health drop to get people, and now they're committed, and now is the time where we have to recover to try and do damage. And they're putting in a lot of damage to me. I realize that there are 2 targets that I need to kill that are doing a lot of damage. The bow dude, and it is the fire staff. So right now I'm staying on the sword and shield bar. It's my high defense bar, but it's very risky for me to put in any sort of offense. So defending is not too bad, but offense while defending is extremely hard. So this was a risky maneuver, which was a shockwave into a heavy attack into a armor breaker, which was able to take that dude out. So now it's once again recovery. So the 2 melee people, they are very good at disrupting, but they're not doing as much damage as the fire mage. So the goal is to get the fire mage out of the picture and just keep enough health and keep enough fortify up that I can really trade with the melee people while chasing that dude down. Because anytime you start chasing, that's when they can put in a lot of damage into you. So I'm building my sturdy fortification up by blocking all those guys' attacks, and then right now I'm just slowly hitting shield rushes to weaken people and shockwaves to weaken these people with the clear out, also giving me some health and building some ultimate. With Defiant stance up and a shield rush with the fortify and the weaken, I can now stand my sword and shield bar and try and catch this dude, knowing that I'm going to get lit up from the back by these 2 melee people. So that's why you want to fortify yourself up prior to doing that. And then using the medium heavy attacks, so the very fast heavy attacks, or the heavy attacks with very little charge time, that has very good tracking, and that allows you to put in a lot of damage. So I got him with the shield rush into a shield bash, into a clear out, into a light attack, quickly dismantled him. now it's just for the two melee people. They're fighting me in my environment, which is melee hand-to-hand combat, and they can't really trade with this build. This build is very good at trading because we have the grit passive and 350 con, tread and recovery, also with the grit passive in the Warhammer skill tree that gives heavy attack speed, but also 12% damage reduction, so they can't really trade with me and expect to come out on top. We're able to kill that guy, comboed him out, and killed the second guy. No problem. That's it for us, and I'll show you all the build following through. Okay, so now talking about the Atlas build. For those of you who are new, the Atlas build is a PvP tank build. It's a combat tank build, essentially. It excels at 1vx combat, and the general rule of thumb is you have the attack power and the defense power to survive against multiple players and kill multiple players at once. However, a player with no intentions of killing you, so a player who's running, you will have a difficult time trying to kill that player. So that's the main weakness of the Atlas build. It lacks mobility. But in terms of raw offense ability and raw defense ability, it excels in melee combat from those respective angles. Alright, in terms of what I'm wearing, so let's start out with the mount. I rarely ever cover the mount, but the mount has been a very big portion of PvP combat going forward. So I'm using this mount chart that gives me regeneration, and then the other charm I have is the one that heals me up when I'm dismounted. So as I said previously, you're going to want to be dismounted as much as possible initially when you're fighting. And to do that, I like to just sit on my mount AFK, and people think I'm AFK and they hit me off my mount so I can initiate combat. Next, in terms of what I'm wearing, majority Frigid Dawn. Void Dark Plate, you want sturdy energy here, that's the main perk that you want to put over there. Another Frigid Dawn, and Accelerated Defiant Stance with Elemental Aversion and Health. So, general concept, as much Frigid Dawn as possible. I've given up a lot of weapon perks to fit this many, but I'm able to do that because I'm using Armor Breaker now instead of Wrecking Ball for the added DPS. But accelerating Resolve, this is a good perk because of the movement speed. It allows you to relocate. However, with next patch, I don't know if it's going to be next patch or not, but they're changing Resolve to be off base health instead of 15% max health. So that will be almost like a 2.5-ish K heal compared to the 5K heal it is now. So it's up in the air whether we still use that move or not. In terms of the shield, it hasn't changed. Fortifying Shield Rush gives you that Fortify, Sturdy Energy, or Sturdy Fortification gives you that Fortification as well, and then Sturdy, obviously, for good block stability. For the sword, Sure Footing and Lifesteal, the two mandatory perks you want here. Sure Footing because it stacks with the mobility passive in the sword and shield tree, and this will allow you to navigate even when you're slowed by blunderbusses and ice gauntlet and stuff like that. It allows you to just keep on blocking and move to a spot that's safe for combat. Warhammer, main thing you want here is Trend Recovery and then the rend off of Clear Out. And Attunement is the thing that gives you the most damage, but you can replace this with Plague Strikes, or you can replace it with any sort of perk that you want. I just like the extra damage, and I like the burst damage from this because that allows me to finish off people effectively. Heart Rune is just going to be the healing stone form. We're going with Divine and Thrust Protection. If you look at the gems, once again, they're fairly evenly split between what we have. We do have one Strike Ward because I realized there was a time when I was fighting a bunch of Warhammer people. You rarely see Warhammer people in combat, but typically for Warhammer, what helps you survive against them is having Enchanted Ward. So I have a lot of Frigid Dawn, which allows me to survive because that's where a lot of the Warhammer damage is from. However, when they start using Armor Breaker, that bypasses all of your Enchanted Ward, and it really hits for a lot. So having that one piece of strike resistance does help. But with Warhammer, you just try and either focus them and CC them and try and kill them off fast, or you sort of kite them out of there. Next, for our ring, the main thing you want here is leeching, and then find whatever damage perk that you want to put over there, but you want more damage on the ring. So I have 2 perks for damage, invigorating punishment, and strike damage as well. And then we have the earring, pretty much straightforward. Regenerating is the main mandatory perk there. The other perks are complementary. In terms of potions and stuff, I just use the normal potion. I use regen, and I use gemstone dust. Because elemental, so the reason I use this versus physical, we do have this thrust ward over here and we can block a lot of the physical damage, but a lot of the dots from the fire staff and a lot of the elemental things are AoE and they can bypass block as well, and most of them are going to be ranged, so you're going to have to close that distance and you want to be protected as you close that distance. We have, in terms of buffs, I use this Desert Sunrise, the highest tier of that. I use the highest tier of the Strength Food, and then I use the highest tier of the Honing Stone. Those are the 3 buffs that I keep active. You can use Regen Serum, but that's just a lot of money. This is the most money I've actually had in my entire gameplay, just because it hasn't been anything for me to buy lately. And for those of you who are wondering how to get the gear that I currently have, a lot of this can just be crafted using the Klin, or whatever this thing is. Yeah, the Killin or whatever. And so if you just spam the Glacial Tarn mutation M1, you can just get that material to craft these 3. This also you can craft as well using, when it drops the artifact, it drops from barnacles, I think. Yeah, when it's mutated, you just craft that. And for the legs, that was the most expensive piece that I got, because I had to craft this manually. But you don't need to do that now. You just have to get the wood grain set, which is this set, and it comes to elemental aversion and health, and then you can just throw in resolve onto there, and you can have that for very cheap. So everything here is going to be less than 15k. I say 15k because, well, actually 20k because you have to look at the matrix, but using the chromatic seals, 3 chromatic seals and matrix, you should be able to get all of these pieces with these exact same traits exactly how you want it. In wood grain, you farm this set at this location in Eden Grove, this Toto Ribbon, and people are going to say X-Lithring or something like that, and that they're all farming for this Lithring set, but it drops wood grain as well, which should allow you to get everything that I have thus far. The shield, you can just use a normal 625 shield. I had someone craft this shield for me, and that cost me about 40k. But the rest, oh, also the hammer. The hammer is going to be one that's going to be expensive. If anything that you do a 3 perk craft for, do it for your hammer, and craft that 3 perk item. So save up for that, and then you can just use a 2 perker here, being lifesteal and sure footing. Terms of the attributes now, I go with 350 con, 250 strength. I have a couple of clips actually where I was running, I think it was Genesis on repeat to get some cash, and I had it still set for 400 strength and like 200 con, and you just absolutely nuke people with this setup because of these 2 perks at the end of strength. So the 7% increase base damage and this 10% increase base damage to the abilities. So this is going to make your armor breaker hit like a truck when you're about 50% health, or anytime you're trading with people and you hit that armor breaker. So heavy attack into armor breaker, you just absolutely nuke people with this much strength. But this is not really, it's not optimized. A more optimal approach would be to take this to about 250 con and 350 strength. That would be the best setup in terms of actual DPS output while being tanky. I like the 350 con passive, and I also just like being super tanky, so I stay with 350. That might change with Defiant Stance changing, because a lot of my healing does come from Defiant Stance, which segues into the sword and shield tree. So Defiant Stance, as I said before, it's gonna change the base health instead of max health, which is gonna suck very, very much. However, it's not gonna be enough to nerf us. Like, they haven't released one change in this game that can possibly nerf us to the extent where we can't 1vx, because we know our build very, very well. So this is my current setup. What you want to do over here is a very tough call, so I don't use stopwatch anymore, which means I do have to take these passives on shield bash. But that also means that if I want the battle mobility, I have to give some things up. So I did give up this slow, and I did give up my increased stamina that I get when I hit either shield rush or shield bash. Very useful perks, so you can move those around, but I wanted the cooldown reduction and I wanted that mobility. For the Warhammer, we have made some changes. Primarily, instead of doing Wrecking Ball, we've gone with Armor Breaker, because Armor Breaker just hits so hard right now. Just the fact that it penetrates this much armor, and the fact that it does at baseline 160% weapon damage, and it has this 30% rend, so that allows us to not use Sundering Shockwave on our body. Essentially just replace that with another Frigid Dawn. So we have almost around the same amount of defense, if you look at it, compared to having Wrecking Ball on our bar instead of, having Armor Breaker on our bar instead of Wrecking Ball. Because the Wrecking Ball does give us that fortified, but the rend and the fact that we have a Frigid Dawn to replace the Shockwave because we have so much rend now does allow for that. What else do we want to talk about? Everything else has remained the same. We are going with this exhaustive attacks. We've always had that, but the reason we have this is so that we can capitalize on this debuff perk, or increase damage against those with debuffs, or Warhammer debuffs specifically. So Clear Out's the only one that doesn't have a Warhammer debuff attached to it, which is why we do need this, but regardless if you use that or not, it doesn't really add too much. What else? Yeah, and that's essentially it for the build. Not much has changed. Everything is relatively the same. For 1vxing and just overall combat, for us to give you all my own tips, is just keep on fighting. Like, you're not going to get better if you don't fight. You just got to die off, and the more you die and the more you're fighting, the better it is going to be for you in the long run. You just get so much more training than if you always have help with other people. So yeah, you just keep on fighting and keep on pushing yourself to new limits, and that's how you really become a master at 1vx. And no matter what sort of patch comes out, just keep on training with the cards that you're dealt with, and you will succeed, and you will find ways to refine your gameplay and your playstyle. That's all I have for you, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.